Hello everyone, myself Ritesh. I have 5 years of experience into data engineering and data analytics field. Very good morning again. So we will be starting with the today's session. So today we would be kind of covering the insights related to DBMS. What exactly do we mean by relational database management system? There are few differences between the data warehouse, the data mart, data lake, and the database. So what exactly these concepts mean? Where do we use these concepts? And at the end, we would be seeing few insights related to the SQL, which includes the installation of MySQL, creating a sample database, or maybe creating a database and how do we access that database, and the UI of the SQL, MySQL instance, which we would be installing, the MySQL workbench. So starting with, let's rewind back. We have already gone through the OLTP and OLAP, what exactly the OLTP and OLAP means. These are the two ways of processing the data or any specific database. Now, if I rewind it back, the OLTP, which is more specifically a relational database management system, which includes all the SQL related concepts, the relational related concepts, where the information is updated on the time to time or timely manner basis. Now, this is very fast. This has to be updated on the frequent basis. It can't be neglected. It can't be kind of waiting period is comparatively way more low as compared to the OLAP. The OLAP systems are more specifically the historical systems. Whichever data was generated, that data is somewhere dumped into a data warehouse for future analysis, for future trend. For that specific purpose, we always go with OLAP, where only selection of data. We are only selecting certain data, trying to view what are the statistics, what can we analyze with that specific historical data and make our business decisions. So more specifically, OLAP is uh, related to the big data concepts, or where the data is very vast. Why vast? The historical data can be of n number of years. If you take an example from the company which started in 2000, the data till 2022 or 2021, from 2000 to 2021, we can assume this as completely historical data. Maybe from 22 and 23, the last 2 years trend, we can keep it as current data, which is OLTP, which updates on the frequent basis. Now, this we can call it as OLTP, whereas the historical data can be called as OLAP, the analytical processing data. The OLTP is more specifically called as RDBMS. Why? Because there is a concept called as relational database management system. Now, what is RDBMS? Where exactly is it used? How do we use it? What all components are present? That all insights we are going to see in today's session. Moving further, we will start with what do you mean by DBMS? Now, many of us might already know, DBMS is nothing but a database management system. For every specific information, for every specific data which is stored in a database, there is a management system. It has to have certain set of rules. It has to have certain set of regulations, and there is a background architecture associated with that. Now, what exactly that architecture means, what all architectural types are present or are used in current world scenario, that aspects we are going to cover. The DBMS is nothing but a kind of storing and retrieving the process of data. More specifically, we always use appropriate security measures. Not only storing, not only retrieving, not only updating the data, but apart from this, we also need to have appropriate security measures. Why? Because for every data, there is a restriction. If it is kept blankly, if it is kept without any security, anyone can access that data, anyone can update, or anyone can retrieve that information. We have to certainly give certain rules. We have to follow certain rules that certain users only can access this data. For that specific aspect, we should always focus on the appropriate security measures. Now, what all security measures are there? how do we take care, that we are going to see in the different types of architectural formats. DBMS allows users to create their own database as per their requirement. Now, creating a table in a database, okay, a user can do, but apart from creating a table, there are multiple databases in a certain management system. We can create n number of databases, and every database can have multiple tables or multiple information present in that. Now, DBMS has that flexibility. If a user who has a complete access to the management system, he can create his own database as per his requirement. Now, database means we give certain security measures. We also give what would be the size of the database. For specific table, if you are creating any specific table in a database, we need to declare how many columns are there. Name of the column. Name of the column. If there are 4 columns, we can declare A, column B, column C, and column D. But whereas if you are trying to create a database, we have to certainly declare what would be the size of that database. This is table, and table is present in a database, and this database is present in the DBMS system. The outermost layer is called as a DBMS system. This is the outermost layer. This is called as DBMS system, database management system. Now for this DBMS, we have to specifically give certain security measures. There are only, I mean, if there are 5 people in an organization, or maybe 5 people who are working on the development or the database perspective, and I only want to give this DBMS, the complete database access to 2 of them, maybe user 1 and user 2, I want to give access. There the DBMS concept comes into picture. We have a security mechanism, maybe sharing of username or password, maybe sharing of the authentication or authorization process. The other 3 folks cannot use this database, or probably there are multiple databases in a single database management system. There can be a different database in the same DBMS. This is database 2. Now for this database 2, these 3 people might have access, not these 2. The first database, only 2 would have access, not the next 3. So this mechanism can be determined, this mechanism can be analyzed in different architectural formats. Now what all these architectural formats are, we are going to see. The DBMS has always started with the historical or the legacy system, which is nothing but one tier architecture. Now, in simple words, this is nowhere used nowadays. This is purely an historical architecture. They always started with the first layer, or they always started with the first tier of architecture, which is nothing but a simple, if a person, let's take an example, take an example of a library. So there are many public libraries. If you go outside, there are many public libraries. So any one of us can directly visit that public library, and there are few books, or maybe there are few magazines which are easily accessed without any specific entry in that library. You can enter that, you can get that magazine, you can read that magazine, and you can keep it back. Now there is no mentioning of whether I've taken that magazine, whether am I reading that magazine, because these magazines are maybe the newspaper magazines or the magazines which are uh, can be easily accessed, I mean publicly available. Now for that specific magazine, you need not have a library membership. You need not mention your name that I'm taking this magazine, I'm reading this magazine. Now for that cases, we call it as one tier architecture. Now it might have, and few might have a kind of confusion there, what exactly this one tier means again. In simple terms, if a person who wants to access certain resources without any security measures, directly going and accessing that resources is called as one tier architecture in DBMS. There is no security mechanism. There is no kind of insight, or there is no information required that I'll be using this resources, I'll be accessing these resources. For that specific components, we call it as one tier architecture. Nowadays, not at all used anywhere. Now moving to 2-tier architecture, let's take an example of the same library. There are few books where you have to mention your name. Um, that books can be related to certain subject, that books can be related to certain uh, mythology or maybe some stories related books. You need not have a membership, but you can directly access that books, but you have to mention your name. Now in such cases, this we call it as a two tier architecture, where there is a mentioning of name. Mentioning of name means certain people are accessing that resources, so that accessing of resources is known to the head or maybe the person who owns this database. He already knows that there are three people who are accessing these resources. That information is stored somewhere. Now that process is called as two-tier architecture. Now this was used certainly till 10 years back, or maybe probably 10-15 years back. But since last 15 years, or maybe last 10 years, frequently the three-tier architecture is used nowadays. Now three-tier is an upgraded version of two-tier architecture only. Three-tier has certain security mechanisms. Now, in simple terms, the same library example, if you want to access more insights books, or books which are more related to domain, which are more related to specific subject, you need not, maybe you have to have an access. You need to have a library membership. You have to mention your name, that I'm taking this book for certain period of time. Now that process where you have a library access, where you have a library membership, where you also need to mention that I'm taking this book for certain period of time, that process is called as security mechanism. Now security mechanism means you already have a library membership, you have full flexibility to access all the resources, all the books. But even though you have access, you are mentioning your name, that I'm taking this book for certain period of time. Now that is called as three-tier architecture, where do we have a security mechanism, where we need to be part of certain group. Security is there, mentioning your name, that I'm taking this book, that is called as security. You need to have a library membership, that is called as authorization. You have authority to take that book. Authorization and authentication both are present in the three-tier architecture. In case of two-tier, only authentication is there, authorization is not there. Anyone can come and take that book, but you have to mention your name there. Whereas in case of three-tier, in the library example, you need to have a library membership, as well as you have to mention that I'm taking this book for certain period of time. So these concepts, security mechanism and authorization mechanism, these two concepts are present in three-tier architecture. Now let's take, how does, or let's look, how does the three-tier architecture look like? Now in simple terms, this is three-tier architecture. Now you'll have a question that there are only two ovals, or there are only two circles. You can assume this as one, you can assume this as two. Where is the third layer, or maybe third tier of architecture? Now this connectivity is called as third layer. This is layer one, this is layer two. The connectivity is called as layer three, which altogether combines to form a three-tier architecture. Now this might look, this is a 1D explanation, or a kind of one-dimensional explanation. In case of real world, how does it look like? This is the backend database. This backend database is layer one. On front of this, there is another oval, which is front end, which is a kind of website. This is second layer, and there is a connectivity between layer one and layer two, that is website and the database. That connectivity here in between is called as layer three. Now this is how in 3D or real time it look like. You may not see the both ovals, but in simple explanation, in one dimensional explanation, there is a database. In order to access this database, the user has to visit a website. Now this client is called as a website. This website is somewhere connected to database via application server. Now for this, if a user is accessing a website, he will he needs to have an access to that website. First important cases, he needs to have access to that website. Once he can access that, he need to enter his credentials, maybe username or password. In order to access the data, he need to enter that username and password. or maybe any authorization process, the one factor authentication or your OTP authentication, in order to access the data present in the database. Now, for that, the database is connected to the front end website with the help of server, with the help of certain connection. Now, that connection is called as third tier. This is how the three-tier architecture look alike: database, website, and a server all together, which forms a three-tier architecture. In simple terms, this is most widely used. Why? Because there is a connectivity, there is a linked service, there is a linking between the database and user. And for that link, the user has to enter security, that is username or password, or any authorization process. Now, altogether, this plays an important role. If I come back, tier one, we have seen an example who can directly go and access. If you take an example of library, directly go and access any newspapers, any magazines without any library membership, without writing anything in the library records. Two tier need not have a library membership, but can read few books. He need to mention his name. Whereas three tier, he needs to have a library membership, as well as he has to mention that I'm taking certain books for certain period of time. Now that is how the data flows. That is how the architectural format of database management system is. The three tier is the most advanced, most widely used. Why? Because there is a security and authorization mechanism. This helps to secure the data. This helps to improve the information which is being kept in the any specific management system. Any questions on these concepts? I'll take a pause of 1 minute. Any questions on these concepts?
Ritesh, that second part, like database to application server, can you please explain it again if possible?
Okay, the diagrammatic representation,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Okay, so cool. Now let's take an example of Amazon website, or maybe Amazon mobile application. This Amazon mobile application front end only we know. Back end, there is certain data. There is a database. Now, if you want to order certain product from Amazon, either you need to log in. The best part is you need to log in using any mobile number, or you need to log in using your email ID. Now, for that specific aspect, if you enter any information, it will not directly jump to the database. It goes through certain channel. That channel is called as a server. There is a linking between the front end application or a website to the backend database. Now, for that linking purpose, you need to create a Amazon account which has a username, which has a password, or maybe if you have a mobile number, you need to enter a OTP received on the mobile number. Now, that linking or that channel is called as a application server, or that channel is called as a simple server. This is client. Client means a user is entering username and password. That username and password is moving from this channel. Via this channel, it is going to this server. This server authenticates that user is valid, and then once this user is valid, the database information, or the information which is present in the database, can be accessed. If this database, I mean the username and password is correct, information would be shared, and this information is again passed through same channel. This information is again passed. This comes to the website, and a user can see that specific information. Layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. 1 and 2 is backend is one end, 2 is the front end, 3 which is connecting both backend as well as front end, which is nothing but the linked service, which is nothing but a channel. This channel authenticates and processes the data. Three-tier architecture.
Got it. Thank you.
Now, there are four different types of management systems, four different types of database management systems. What all these four DBMS are? Um, Most of the times, we always go with this relational database. Now, what do you mean by relational? How is it different than these three? We would be seeing at the end the relational. We would be starting with the first three, that is hierarchical, network, and object oriented. These databases, the DBMS systems, are not used by any data analyst. Uh, these are more a kind of maybe a data warehousing, maybe whenever there is a flow or networking of data in there, these database management systems are used. Now these means maybe hierarchical, maybe network, or maybe object oriented. Now if you take an example of NoSQL related concepts, they are most probably object oriented databases. NoSQL, there is no structure, there is no table like views, there are no relations. In that case, it is an object oriented database. MongoDB, you can call it as object oriented. More specifically, it is object oriented. Now what do you mean by object oriented database? If you take an example, um, folks who are from Java, not sure how many of you are there, but Java is a object oriented programming language. It is, now why is it object oriented? The information is somewhere present in the objects and classes. There is a concept called as object as well as classes. Now what do you mean by object, what do you mean by class? If I take an example of bank, bank is an object, and in this bank there are multiple accounts. Account is a class. There are branches, branch is a class. There are uh, you could say clients, n number of clients or n number of users. These are all classes. There are multiple employees who work in that bank. Employee is also a class. Now this is how the data looks like in object oriented database. In terms of object is the highest part, where if you take an example, bank has an account, it has branches, it has clients, it has employees, clients or users, it has employees. There are n number of aspects. Account number is also a class. The branch ID or IFSC code is also a class. The MICR code is also a class. Anything related to bank comes under a class, and the highest level of hierarchy is object. Now, in simple terms, if I take any other example, if anyone can give any other example, what do you mean by object and what do you mean by class? Take any random example. Simple. If I take an example of human being, human is an object. He has eyes, nose, ears. These are all classes. Now, if anyone can take an example, what object is and what all the classes are present in that object. Anyone can give a try.
House, you can say house, home, and the people, those who are living in the house. Those are the classes.
Okay, good. Any more classes? Windows, doors, these are all classes.
Yes, yes, everything which is available in the house.
Now, everything which is related to house can be determined as classes. Now, this is how the data flows in object-oriented database. There is an object and there is a class, but dependencies, if there is object, there needs to be a class. You cannot only create an object. If you are creating an object, there has to be a class present. Now that is how the data flows in object oriented database. It is more specifically a NoSQL database. Anything related to NoSQL can be clearly optimized or clearly informed as object oriented databases. Now, going back to what do you mean by hierarchical database? Now, hierarchical database means there is a hierarchy of data. There is a flow of data from upper level to downward level. Now, what do you mean by upper level to downward level? Uh, More specifically, our family tree. If you take an example of family tree, maybe 3 generations from our current generation to back 3 generations, we are generation 3, or maybe generation, the latest generation in the hierarchical database. We are the latest generation. So somewhere we come here. Above us, we have a parent, mother, and father. Now, this we can take um, kind of tree or branch like structure is there. If you have any siblings, we can take this example. We can create a branch, and somewhere our mother and father is related to a grandfather or grandmother. Now that is how the data flows. And our grandfather and grandmother is somewhere again related to our great grandfathers. Now this is how the hierarchy of data looks like. There is a flow of information from upward to downward. This is a channel here. this acts like a family tree. If you take an example, it simply acts like a family tree. Now that specific information is called as hierarchical database. There is a hierarchy of information starting from uppermost to the current or the latest trend or the current or latest generation which we are. Now that is how the hierarchy or flow of data is. Now where exactly is it used? Wherever there is a dependency or probably wherever there is a flow of data, in such cases we use this hierarchical database. Do not go in depth. The only information is it looks like a family tree. That's it. And if I take an example of network database, now network database means it is also similar like hierarchy only. The data flows like hierarchy only, but there is certain difference. Now that certain difference means um, one child can be related to multiple parent. Now that is how the networking works. If you take any networking process also, certain, now take an example, this is network one. This network one is connected to multiple networks. Maybe this is network upper network. I'll keep it as UP. Sorry, UN. Let me take this. This is the upper network. This network work can be connected to multiple upper networks. This is upper network 2. This can be further connected to upper network 3. Somewhere one child is connected to multiple parent. Can be n number of multiple parent. Now that one, the lowest or the one current node which is further connected to multiple upper nodes, that concept is called as a network database. There is a network. Hierarchy also looks like a network, but there are restrictions in hierarchy. Maybe one child can have two parents, mother and father. Now similarly, it can be same representation. One node or one network can have two parents, but minimum of 2 and maximum of n. And now n means n number of upper networks. Now that is how the network database works. It is also not used from the data analyst point of perspective. Now moving to the relational database, which is widely used. Any SQL data, anything related to SQL is relational database management system. Any SQL, if you take RDBMS, I mean the MySQL, maybe Oracle SQL, the PL SQL, the SQL Server, the MariaDB or IBM DB2, PostgreSQL, all these concepts are related to relational database management system. Now, what do you mean by relation? The information in the SQL is stored in number of tables or maybe in the format of tables. There can be only one table or there can be multiple tables. Now, if there are multiple tables, the information is bifurcated here. Now, why? Because it would be easier to read. If there are 10,000 records or probably there are 10,000 columns, it is not required to create only one table. That specific information can be sliced into multiple columns or multiple entities. Now that different entities can be stored in different tables and we can create a relationship. The best example, if I take an example of bank itself here, bank has multiple. Now we have seen bank is the object and classes are multiple things present related to bank. Now in relational database management system, if I create a banking database, the first table will only contain the bank information. Bank information in the sense branch 1, branch 2, branch 3, branch 4. Anything related to branch is present in the table 1. Now table 2 will contain information of clients or users. If I take this, table 1 and table 2 is connected with the help of client ID. Branch 1 has certain clients, that information is present here, but that client ID is also present in this table and client ID is also present in this table. Somewhere it is connected via client ID. Now maybe table 3 has information related to their account information. What is their balance? what all previous transactions they have made, um, maybe any debit card or credit card they maintain, any loan they maintain. That specific individual level information is present in the account, that is table 3. Now that information is somewhere connected with the account number. Here also in client table, we also have a client ID, and for every client ID, there is an account number. Now this account number is connected to this account number, that is table 2 is connected to table 3. Now there is a relation for every table. We are creating a kind of relation. Now that specific relation is called as a relational database management system. In simple terms, we are breaking data into multiple entities, and every entity acts like a table here, which is somewhere connected or somewhere related to each other with a unique ID or with a specific ID. Now that specific ID we have to determine, we have to create that relation between multiple tables all together to form a relational database management system. Now, let's take an example of multiple SQL databases, which are all RDBMS. Any SQL, as I've said, any SQL is called as RDBMS, Relational Database Management Systems. Now, these are the 6 mostly or widely used RDBMS systems. These are not only 6, there can be many. I mean, there are many relational database management systems. For every organization, there are few product-based companies who have their own in-house relational database management systems. They have restricted that RDBMS to their organization, to their clients, or to their users only. They have not released in public version, but these 6 are most widely used. Microsoft SQL Server, which is a product of Microsoft. PostgreSQL, um, Oracle database, product of Oracle. IBM DB2. Now this IBM DB2 was developed by IBM scientists or IBM team only, which was used internally. MySQL, developed by Apache Foundation, and MariaDB. Now the names are different, and way of calling is also different. Now what do you mean by way of calling? Now, way of calling in the sense, if I take an example of Oracle DB, it is called as PL SQL. The PL SQL means it's a kind of procedural SQL. The Microsoft SQL Server, it is somewhere called as T SQL, which is nothing but a transact SQL. Now, in between, when we start with the programming concept, I would be explaining what do you mean by T SQL and what do you mean by PL SQL. What is the basic difference between these two concepts or these two SQLs? Why is it called procedural SQL? Why Microsoft SQL Server is called as T SQL or the transact SQL? Now, in our scenario, we would be using a MySQL. Now, many might have a question that why only MySQL? Because many organizations tend to use Oracle, tend to use Microsoft SQL Server. These both databases are cloud related databases. If you want to create a Microsoft SQL Server, you need to have an Azure account. You need to have a Azure cloud account. If you want to create an Oracle database, you need to have a Oracle cloud access, or maybe you need to have a flexibility of creating Oracle database in the Oracle cloud. Whereas MySQL, this product is developed in such a way that you need not have any cloud access. You can locally install this MySQL server. You can create your own server in your local system and you can access it as if you are accessing any cloud. For that specific advantage, we would be using MySQL database for our practicing, for our kind of any querying or any database related perspective. Now we have a flexibility to use any of this. Mostly in any organization, they'll always use T-SQL, they'll always use Oracle SQL. There are few organizations which still uses MySQL. Now, MySQL, that doesn't mean if you are installing it in your local system, you need not have a cloud access. Okay, there are few organizations which install this MySQL in their specific clouds. That flexibility is given. MySQL doesn't always require its own cloud. This Apache Software Foundation, they don't have their own cloud. You can either install this MySQL in any of your clouds or in your local systems. That is the biggest advantage. For that specific reason, we would be using MySQL. Now you will have a question that which all organizations uses this MySQL. Facebook, Facebook has this company, Facebook has their own cloud. Earlier they were using AWS for certain period of time. They are still using AWS for certain resources. For few years, they were using Azure as well. Now, using in the sense they have not completely downgraded from AWS or Azure, but their most of the stuff is present in the MySQL database. Now, for that reason, Facebook is somewhere down most number of times. Now, that is a kind of drawback. Now, drawback in the sense, MySQL, this database is not installed on any specific cloud. This is installed in any specific server or maybe any specific location, and somewhere if this if your local system is not working properly, the the MySQL instance or the MySQL server, the workbench will go down or there is a downtime. Now similarly, you might experience anything related to Facebook, maybe Instagram or your um, the WhatsApp, somewhere it goes down in between. There is a downtime, or your messages, your pics would be not uploaded. There is a downtime. Your system, your application is not working properly. Now, why? Because most of the times Facebook uses this MySQL concept or MySQL as their structured query language, their backend database. Now, why you'll have a question that why not they will go with SQL Server, why not Oracle DB? Because Oracle is a competitor for Facebook. Microsoft is a competitor for Facebook. So these organizations work in such a way that they'll always maybe they can use AWS, they can use Azure, but they'll restrict that use case. They'll always go with their individual product. They can develop their own database. Now that is how the big organizations work. Now we'll see the differences between database, data warehouse, data mart, and data lake. Let me take an example here. I'll take a one single example and I want answers from you folks. Now if I take an example of let me take an example of a spices. Let me take an example of spices. Now spices in the sense, I'm taking an example of certain masala. Now this masala is a blend of multiple spices. There are multiple spices. Now in simplified version, this is the finished product. The masala is the finished the product. In order to prepare this masala, there are multiple spices or ingredients mixed together. Multiple ingredients. It might have many spices. It might have the salt, or it might have your red chili powder. All that stuff mixed together to form the final finished product. Now, in simple terms, how does this masala, the flow of journey takes place? Somewhere the masalas or all the raw ingredients are collected from the farmers or are collected from the fields, the farm fields. Now that all raw ingredients, the raw ingredients somewhere come to the factory. I'll keep it as raw ingredients. These raw ingredients, there can be n number of raw ingredients. Now, these are all raw ingredients. These all ingredients comes to a certain factory. Now this is factory or place where they are mixed together. Now from this factory, these all raw ingredients are mixed together and they are put down in one certain box. That box is labeled, that box is packed. Now once that is done, from this factory it moves to certain storage area. Now from factory it never directly goes to the shopkeeper. It goes through certain warehouse. It goes through certain godown, or where the masalas are stored together. Now in that specific godown or in that specific warehouse, I'll keep it as godown or warehouse, these masalas are all racked in a certain place. In warehouse there can be multiple number of products. Now there might be a special rack where all these masalas are kept. I'll keep it as rack. Now in this rack, all masalas are kept in one specific location, and at the end it goes to certain shop where it is purchased by end user. Now this masala is going through certain journey. It comes from farm fields, which all are raw ingredients. They are mixed together in a factory, they are packed there. It goes to warehouse. In warehouse they are arranged in certain racks, and at the end, from that rack, if a shopkeeper orders it, it goes to shop, and somewhere the user purchases, the end user purchases. Now in simple terms, if I take an example, factory here is data lake. The godown where the masala is kept is called as warehouse. In that godown where that masala is kept, that specific rack is called as data mart, and the shop is called as database. Now this is how the flow of data is. Let me remove these lines. Now, what do you mean by factory? In factory, the information is not cleaned. The information might be raw. Information is not structured here. Why? Because all the ingredients related to masalas are coming in raw format. They are mixed together, and they are creating a final product in a box. Now that final product in a box is called as a structured product, which goes to data warehouse. Data warehouse, the product is structured. In the data mart also, the product is structured. Why? Because in warehouse there are certain data marts, or there are certain racks in where the masalas are kept. Now that racks are called as data mart. At the end it goes to shop. In shop also, everything is structured format. The masala is already mixed together, it's in a structured format, and it is sold to the end user, or the person who's trying to purchase. So all these data warehouse, data mart, and database, the information is always structured. Whereas if it is coming from data lake, which is a factory here, it is in raw format. Now source for data lake, that is factory, source can be many. It might be coming from raw fields, maybe it might be coming from certain factories, or prior to factory also there are a number of raw factories where we are getting this product from. Now it can be multiple product, might be coming from multiple sources. Even data warehouse, in data warehouse, the product can be this masala can be coming from multiple factories together. There can be n number of factories. Maybe factory one is manufacturing certain masalas related to any chart, or related to any veg related masalas. Maybe your any non-veg related masalas which are used for non-veg food items, they might be coming from different factory. So for data warehouse also, there can be multiple sources. Whereas in data mart, if that product enters data warehouse, data mart can be of single source. Even though the data is coming from multiple sources in warehouse, once it enters warehouse, it comes to a single source. It can be arranged in multiple racks. It can be arranged in multiple marts there. And from the database point of perspective, again, it is coming from a single source. That is, this shop will get a product from certain rack of that data warehouse. That is single source. Now, if you want to explain it, you can take an example of this. You can take any specific product which is coming from factory, which goes to, in factory, it can be any raw ingredient. It is manufactured, it is finished there. The product is in finished format. It goes to data warehouse. And again, in data warehouse, it is arranged in multiple racks, which is nothing but data mart. At the end, it goes to a shop, or it goes to the place where it would be purchased by end user, which is nothing but a database. Now you can go and see all the differences here. What do you mean by what exactly the flexibility is? Now flexibility is, if you want to search certain information related to that masala, in the database we only know that there is a masala present in that box. If you want where that information is coming from, you don't have that flexibility, very low flexibility. In data mart we have a flexibility, because we know that that specific masala is coming from different factories, or different warehouses. In warehouse also, we also know that it is coming from multiple factories. Whereas in factory, we know what all raw products are coming from. The data lake, which is the uppermost hierarchy, we know that where these raw ingredients are coming from, where our box or the complete product is manufactured, so that all information is known to us. There the flexibility of knowing data is high. Now in terms of cost, preparing or manufacturing a product is high, maintaining it in warehouse is medium, maintaining it in multiple racks or warehouse again medium, maintaining it in shop is also very low. We have to only keep that product. Volume of data in data lake, it can be very very high, medium in data warehouse, data mart, because we are only focusing on specific rack of that data mart, sorry, of that data warehouse. There are n number of data marts present in a single data warehouse. Now that data mart only have information related to masala, related to soaps, related to food items, maybe related to any other clothes or something. Now that specific different racks are identified as low data volume. In database also very low data volume. Now what is the flow of data? Top to down, data mart bottom up, data warehouse top to down, data lake, it can be of any either of them, any of them, top to down, bottom to up, any way the data flows. Now, these are all the basic differences between database, data mart, data warehouse, and data lake. I'll take a pause of 1 minute. If you have any question related to data lake, warehouse, mart, or database, free to ask.
Ritesh, related to development, how the
Mhm.
bottom up thing is working. I mean, if you can give any example on this, bottom up.
Uh, okay, from bottom to up. Now, in terms of data mart, if I wanted to give you an insight, um, see, whichever is visible for us, maybe there is certain rack where the certain products are kept. You'll never start with the topward or the uppermost rack. You know that uh, there is certain place where this information or where this product is kept. So what you will do is you'll always start from bottom and up, from the bottommost approach. Now where exactly it is used, whenever you create a data mart, um, you have to always create it in the from the downward manner. Now how is it possible? Maybe once we move to the cloud environment or in between of SQL, I'll show you how do we create a data mart. uh, there it will clarify a doubt. If I try to explain it now, it will again create a confusion, but in simple terms, the data always flows from up bottom to up position in data mart. The vice versa, database and data warehouse, it always flows from top to down. Now why bottom to up is, once the product is coming to data warehouse, it might be arranged in racks. Now in that specific rack, we'll always keep products which are uh, heavy, or products which are kind of rarely used in the bottommost line. Why? Because it can take a weight, it can if whatever all products are kept above this, it can bear that weight. Now similarly in data mart, the approach is always bottom to up, because product which is kind of purchased in, you could say, very frequently, or which is maybe widely used, that product is somewhere kept downward, because we always know that these downward products are more highly utilized or more highly demand in market. Now that is how the data mart works. Whereas in data warehouse, it is a big number of data marts clubbed together to form a complete data warehouse. So there we have to take an advantage. It always goes from first in, first out. There is a concept called as FIFO in data warehouse. If it goes to first in, it always goes to first out. In case of data mart, first in, last out. Now these concepts, it will create a confusion. Maybe once we would be moving to SQL, where I'll be explaining the database. Somewhere in between, I can explain you why this is bottom to up approach, the data mart. Let me discard it. We will be seeing the installation process of MySQL. I have captured these steps at my end. So one who have logged in via laptop or any desktop with their systems, we can start with the installation of MySQL Workbench. Now the first step is go to Google, type MySQL download for Windows. Once you type this, now I'll take a pause of 15 seconds at every step or every slide so that you can capture these steps. I'll share this document with the recordings also. You can access it. Now, once you enter the MySQL download for Windows, somewhere it opens this way. The very first link, download MySQL installer. Once you click on that, it will open this way, the MySQL installer. Now we have two options here. Once you enter this website, we have two options. You have to first select the version. Now, when I captured this was around 8.0.34. If there is a latest version, always go with that latest version. That latest version is available at the uppermost level. If you take a drop down, if you click on this drop down also, this specific drop down, it will give you the latest version, this specific drop down.
Yes, it is 3.5.
Yeah,
Three.
3.5. So always
But
select that.
below 3.5, below, sorry for the interruption, below 3.5, it is 5.7.44 as well.
It's 4.4 or it's 3.4?
It's the first one which you are showing, 3.4 is okay.
Mhm.
And the second one, the guy told 3.5 is available, the latest version, right? But
Mhm.
below that 8.0.35, there is one more version is showing, that is 5.7.44.
No, 5 is previous version. We are
Okay.
with 8.
8.35, that's
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Okay. Now, once you select the operating system, if you're using Mac, you can still install that. The Apple iPads or the Apple laptops. Select the operating system. You'll get two options here. The MSI installer, two options. So always go with the 331.3, this storage or this file. If you select the 2.4 MB, this would be a web community only. This would be connected to the cloud. Now, connected to cloud means every time you have to make sure that your cloud, your internet is working fine. If you want to install it completely in your local system, you have a flexibility to create your own server. You have a flexibility to create your own database. For that perspective, you always go with the 331 point or whatever the size which is large in number. So once you click on download, it will take some time to download the 300 MB file. Now you can always skip it. It is not required to sign in. No thanks, just download or just start my download. Now it will start downloading. Once you download it, you have to double click on that. Now this is the first window which will open while the installation of MySQL server. Now in this, you have to select what type of server you want or what type of setup you want. Either you want a server only, either you want a front end client only. You have a flexibility to select full, you have a flexibility to select custom. Now for few of them, this full option is somewhere or this full option is written in the different format, or maybe it is viewed as different format. Let me know if you are at this step. I'll take a pause here.
As a
We
class,
have
do you expect as a class to have the same version, or is it okay to have a little bit
Any
different?
version, any latest version is okay. I'm not saying that 8.0.34 is the perfect version. Any latest version would work.
And even if we have the one that connects with the cloud is fine, or
No, always go with the complete setup. One with
okay.
connects with cloud. um, you might face multiple difficulties there because we
Okay.
don't have a flexibility to connect if there is a downtime, if you want to access it at that specific time. No, we don't have
Okay.
that flexibility, and we don't even have a authority to create databases there. They'll give you their own databases.
Okay.
so we are on same page, so we have to select the full,
Yep.
right?
Always
Okay.
select the full, now which includes both client as well as server, both together.
Okay.
Now, once you select full, it will go to this tab. Whatever version you have selected, that version would be visible: server, workbench, shell, router, documentation, sample, and examples. Select all, or default it is all selected. Click on execute. Now, once you click on execute, each product would be installed separately, but in a single folder. You'll see the status here. At the end, it would be somewhere like this: complete. I'll have a pause here. Let me know if you are at this step or at this point. Folks who have joined using mobile, your iPad, so cannot install, I'll be sharing this document with you. Need not worry. You can access it from the recordings itself. Once this is done, the third step is the product configuration. Ready to configure. Uh, you have to click on next. Once you click on that, it will ask you for this information, type and network. Now this MySQL is installed in your local system on a certain port number. Default it is 3306. If any one of you are using this port for any specific application which is pre-installed, it will throw an error. This port is utilized by some other application. You can simply change it to 3307, 3308, or 3309. Any of them would work. Never go with 331011. 7, 8, or 9. You can try these three. Now, what do you mean by port is the networking point of perspective. It is taking certain server or uh, the IP configuration where this complete SQL server workbench would be installed. The MySQL workbench would be installed.
So only we have to change port number, right?
No,
3307.
it is not recommended to change default. If it is 3306, click on next. If you're facing an error, it will throw an error if that port is occupied.
Okay, so on this page we have to select anything apart from that? No, as it is.
Nothing. As it is, keep it as. Click on next. If you go to next, it will ask you for the accounts and roles. Now here you have to mention the password. Every time when you log in, you have to mention this.
Sorry for the interruption. Actually, I got some other page, like it's not showing account and roles.
Authentication method it is asking.
Yeah, authentication method.
Now, what is it asking there?
Use a strong password encryption for authentication.
That looks good. Enter your password there.
So, but there is no option of entering password.
Okay, click on next.
Okay, next. Yeah, now I got that screen. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Now enter the password. Now you have a flexibility in the down. You have an option here, MySQL user accounts. Now, if this SQL workbench, you need to, if you want to give access to n number of users, you can add an additional user. Even though it is not connected to the internet or maybe cloud, we can create a TCP IP protocol between multiple laptops and we can connect it and it can be shared with the multiple users. Now, similarly, what we will do will not create any network session or will not create any network here. You can add a different user with a different name. Now, user means you yourself would be using, but with a different name. If you add that user will also have access. You will be acting as a admin. For admin, this is the password. If you add any additional user, you can give him a role, and if at all it is required, you can add an user. If not, you can simply go with your admin role only. For admin role, you have entered your password.
Okay, so we don't need to add anything. Only we have to put password, right?
Yeah. Okay. Only password would work. Now, maybe in between, I'll show you how this user access would work. If you are logging with a different user, you need to restrict. You can restrict that user with certain rules or certain security mechanism. The 3-tier architecture, usefulness of 3-tier architecture. Now, if you simply click on next, it will go to Windows service. Select standard system account. On the next option, you will get this grant full access for the Windows service. Now I've installed it on Windows. One who are installing it on Mac, there it would come certainly different. Maybe the Mac service, so maybe a different way. You can install it there. And at the last, once you click on next, it will try executing all the steps. Somewhere it look like this. You'll get a green tick there. If it is going through every step perfectly, it will start a server.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, now this would be your default page. Click on finish. Now here it will ask you, this would be username. Username is root. default, it is kept as root. Why? Because you are accessing as an admin. You have to enter your password. Now somewhere it will open like this. You will get this black color command shell or command prompt. Once you open it for the very first time, either you can delete it, you can cross this here. Now this would be the page you will be getting. I'm taking a pause of 1 minute. Once you are at this step, let me know.
Okay. So on the black screen, what we have to mention?
Delete that. Close
Okay.
that.
Okay. After closing that.
Click on next or
Okay.
finish.
Yeah. I got that screen. Welcome to my SQL workbench. Okay.
Yep. So you have to go to this option, local instance, MySQL 80. Your username, your port number is mentioned. Double click on that. It will ask you.
Password.
The username is already written. Password.
Mm-hmm.
Mention the password which you have
Yeah.
mentioned while installing. Now, if you want to save it, you can save it. You want to remember it always. No, default, you should not save it because you should always remember your password. Why? Because you are logging in as a root or an admin user. If you additionally add any other user, you can write his username and you can write that password.
Okay.
Once you click on OK, this is how it should look like, the UI of MySQL Workbench. Do not go with this, the query which I've written. It should look like this. Once you're at this step, let me know. I'll open at my end as well.
I am on same page.
Any other, anyone who is also with me on the same page? So the one who have joined, who are unable to install, need not worry. I'll share the steps again. Now, once this is done, I'll open at my end. So I was using it already. For that reason, there are multiple files present here. If you want to create any specific file, simply click on this option. Plus SQL is there towards the leftmost corner below file. This will open a new file. If you simply click on this again, it will open a separate file. SQL file 1, SQL file 2, SQL file 3. Randomly, it will take the numbers from the the point of perspective 1, 2, and 3. If you delete any specific file also, it will not retake that number. Now, this is how the UI looks like. You'll get this information. Probably you will seeing this. You might see this information in downward option. You'll get this option, administration and schemas. Now, default, it would be administration for few of them. It would be schemas for few of them. Always go with this schema option. Administration is where if your server is working fine, the installed server is working fine. Anything related to your settings, dashboards, reports, how this SQL workbench is working, you can create an automated report also. This report is created from the SQL server or the MySQL workbench point of perspective only. Go to schemas. In the schemas, you may need not find all these options, only Sakila or SYS or World. These three options would be visible for you. Now, these three means these are all databases. Default, it has installed few databases. Every database has tables, views, functions, or stored procedures. These are the default options available in any specific database. Now, for this, you'll get few tables also. Now, recommended is if you open the first new SQL file, I'll show you how to create a database. How to create a database. Now, I'll write a query, create database. Now, you can give any specific name to this database. I have given my name. You can give your name. You can give any random name also. Now, once I've written this query, this will execute all the queries present in that SQL window or the SQL file you are in. If I'm trying to select this particular blue, which is highlighted, I only want to execute this. Simply click on the second thunder icon, which is present with I. Now, this means execute the statement under keyboard cursor. Only which you are highlighting, it will execute that. Now, if I again go here, now once I create a database, you need to select that database. There can be multiple databases here. You need to select that database. Select database. Whichever database I have selected, I am selecting it. So if I run this, you have an error in your SQL syntax. Now there is an error here. What that error means, I'll try to explain it. But how do we see if it is executing perfectly? You have an output window or output option enabled in the downward option, or you can pull it, you can make it big also. You can use it or navigate it as per your requirement. Now here at the first query which we have written, create database, it worked perfectly fine. One row affected. Now the second one, select database. This is not working properly. Maybe we are missing something. What we are missing? If I mention brackets here, see earlier, if I remove these brackets, somewhere this is not a valid at this position, expecting for log, select table values, somewhere it is giving me an error. A red highlighted line is coming here. Now, if I mention the curly braces or maybe closed brackets and I execute again, database is selected. One row returned, it worked perfectly fine. This is the database and there aren't any tables present in this database. You can see here, null it is coming, simply null. I'll drag it down. You can have a flexibility to drag it down also. Now, once you are with me, with these two commands, I've created a database. I'm selecting the database. Now, again, I'll use this database. You have to use this. Under this database only, you can create tables. You can create whatever aspects you want from the database point of perspective. Now, I'll use this. Use database practice. Now I'm giving a semicolon at end of every query. Why? Because I'm trying to end that query there. This query is ending here. For every end of query, you can enter this semicolon. Now there are certain rules for any SQL or any database, any language. There are certain rules. Now you have to follow that rules. Now, some might also have a question that why only semicolon, why not any other special sign? Now, these rules are defined or set by person or the folks who have developed the SQL, who have developed the MySQL workbench, who have developed the SQL programming language. Now, you again, if you have a confusion that why only this, I'll give you an example. Um, Many of you use the transport, the public transport, or you use your own bike, your own transport, maybe bike or car. At any specific junction or any specific square, you wait. If there is a red signal, you start your bike when there is an orange and you go, maybe you proceed when there is a green signal. Now, why only on red we should wait? Why only on green we should go? Because these rules are certainly developed by, maybe previously at red we have to stop. This is how the mechanism works. This is how the flow of vehicle, the flow of transport works. Now, similarly, if you have a question in database, you should get an idea. I mean, you should always go and ask a police or maybe the one who have developed these traffic rules, why only on red I should wait, why only on green I should go. Similarly, in database, there are few rules which can't be questioned. That is how it goes. You have to go with that flow. Now, the third query, I'm using this. Somewhere it is giving me an error. Database is not valid at this position. Let me take braces. Even if I'm using it, it is giving me a cross mark, highlighting it in red. Now, why is it? If I simply remove it, see that error is gone. Here I need to use this database. Under this database, I want to create tables and all the views. Now, if I want to use it, it is not required to mention the database keyword here. We already mentioned we need to create. We already mentioned we are selecting this. Once you select this, if you want to use it, why to write database again? Simply we know that there is a database created. We know that there is a database we have selected. Under this database, I want to use this. Use, simply write the database name. Never use the database keyword. If I click on this, use this execute icon, I'm using this Ritesh practice database. Now I'll take a pause here. Once you are at this step, let me know. Creating a database. Give it any name, any name you can give. Development practice or development database, testing database, production database, any name. Selecting the database. Now somewhere I'm using the hash, using the database. Now, what does this mean? This hash, it is highlighted in blue color. If I remove this hash, see, it will be taken as a SQL sentence or the SQL keyword. But if I keep hash here, one hash or multiple hash, this acts like a comment. Comment means, what does this query mean? We are commenting it. We are writing that information. Use Ritesh practice using the database. Create database name, creating a database with a specific name. We're trying to give certain information. What does this query mean? So we are commenting that information. In order to comment that, in MySQL Workbench, you have to use hash. Now this is different for different SQL environments. If you are using Oracle, you should always use /. In Oracle or in PL SQL, if you want to comment anything, you can use a /. If you are using SQL Server, you can use this dotted line. Now this dotted line can be used here also. If I remove this, but dotted line should be 2, not 1. This also acts like a comment. This is also comment. This is also comment. Now hash, we can use only one hash. I'm randomly using 2 hashes because it will give you a more insight. Rather than using one hash, I'll use 2 hash, or maybe I can use 3. Looks more easy to read. Now, if you want to use dotted line, one dotted line will not work. You need to use 2 dotted lines. In SQL Server, you can use this dotted line. Let me know if you are on the same page or at the same step.
When creating the database, will it on the left hand side, I see some schemas. Where will it go and say?
Okay, good question. Now, once you create this database, it should reflect here. Now, how do I see that? If I click here, see, there is a refresh option. This is not automatically refreshed. Once you close this and reopen it again, your database would be reflected here. But if you want to see it at the very particular time, there is a refresh option here, the upward downward arrow. If you simply click on this, you can see your created database. This is the created database. Now, while creating database, somewhere in the first session, I've explained there is a schema associated to it. Schema is nothing but a skeleton. Now that skeleton, it has created in the background. If you are creating a database, there is a schema associated with that. Default schema would be created. So at the same page, one who are with me.
Yes.
Okay, so now you have few options here in the file, new query tab, which you select here. That can be done from new query tab. Run SQL script. Now you will have a question. What is the difference between this and this? The 2 thunder icons. I've been using this eye icon only. Now why eye icon? Because whatever I'm highlighting, it will run on only that. If I use this first one, see, if I again use this first one, only use Ritesh practice. It is working fine. Whereas all others are not working. Why? Because database is already created. Now let me take this queries in a new window. I'll copy this. I'll use this new query tab. It will open in a new query. I'll paste it here. Now, how can I make it large? If you click on the control button, use your mouse scroller, make it large. If you scroll it, more you scroll, large would be the text format. Many might see in this default way, very small. Use a control button, leftmost button, below shift or the last button in your keypad. Click on control, use your mouse, scroll it. You have a scroller in your mouse, scroll it. Now in the second window, I want to run this. I want to run all these statements. If I simply click on execute, see, create database Ritesh practice, it is giving me error because it is already exist. What I've used a thunder icon, the first thunder icon or the run icon, which is running all the queries present in this window. It is running all the queries. If I select whichever query I want to run, if I again select this and I want to run this, see, it again gives me an error because this database name is already present. You cannot create a duplicate of it. If you want to create a duplicate, if you want to create a copy of it, the name should be certainly different, or maybe Ritesh practice _1_2_ duplicate _copy. You can give any random name. Again, if I use this, it will work. Why? Because now see again, it is kind of throwing me an error. Ritesh practice database doesn't exist, or database already exists. Why? Because it's already present. If I use this let us see if it is working fine. It is working fine. Why? Because we have already created this. Already this is default selected in the previous condition, and we are using this. Now select and create, it works similar. Somewhere it works similar. Creating, we have a flexibility, we can create it. Selecting means we are only selecting it. We are querying that information. Use means you are using that specific database. Now, if I want to switch from this database, Ritesh practice, to the default database, which is available, that is Sakila or SYS, I'll simply use the database name. Now I can take any specific name, Sakila or sys or world. If I use this, if I run this query, see, it is working fine. Why? Because this is already created and I'm using this Sakila database. And this is already highlighted here. Use Sakila, 0 rows affected. You are in this database. Now you'll have a question. This Sakila is in all small. How come this is working? My SQL workbench is case insensitive. Now there is a difference between case sensitive and case insensitive. Case sensitive means if you take caps, if you take small, anything you take. If I take all caps, this will also work. See, this is also working. If I take any random, S and K are caps, it is also working. My SQL workbench, it is that flexible. It is case insensitive. You can write anything, cap, small, it will take all that. Now there are few SQL products or SQL tools which are case sensitive. If you are creating a database with Sakila as this name, or maybe Ritesh practice with this name, it should be of the same name only. If you have mentioned all small, you need to mention all small. If you have mentioned anything caps here, maybe R is caps, maybe P is caps. Now this is how it look like, which we have created. It has to be in this same format only. Now my SQL workbench with this flexibility, we can use it. We can write it in any keyword, caps, small, anything. Case insensitive. Case sensitive means whichever name, whatever alphabet, maybe small or the caps which you are using, it has to be of same name, same format. With me on the same page?
Yes.
Okay, so it's already 9:30. We'll take a pause here. We have created a database. We have seen how does this UI look like. The one who have not installed, I'll share this presentation or steps with the recordings itself. Now, how do you access it? Maybe let me show you. Let me pause this for a while. Yeah. So I'll add this document, SQL documents are upload this PPT, install the my SQL workbench. Now I've allowed students to download this material. Material name, my SQL workbench steps to install, or I'll keep it as installation. So this file is uploaded. If you refresh your recordings, you will find this folder where you can get this file downloaded. You'll get this option download here. Let me know if you are able to see that.
Sir, can we have this link to access the
Which link?
recording?
If you, yeah, recordings. Okay, you are new to this. I mean, today only you have joined.
No, sir. Last week I joined.
Okay,
Friday.
so you can access this recordings. Let me show you that as well.
Okay.
Take a pause. Okay, so if you go to your account, once you register for this, if you go here, once you register for any specific course, go to courses, you'll find any specific course which you have already registered. Let me register for this course as well. This is free. Enroll now. Yeah, once you log in with the OTP, I'll click on enroll now. This course is already enrolled in your package. I'll go to my account. So I can see that course here. Full Stack Power BI December 23 free preview. If I simply click on this, how do we access recordings? The course content is in PDF. SQL documents you can see here, which I've uploaded the installation steps. Class records. Towards right, you'll get this option class records. You can access your recordings here. The today's recording is in progress. Now, maybe at 10:30, this recording would be automatically uploaded. You can access this recording and you can view that. After every 1 hour of today's session or the current session, you can access that recording. Any questions on the concepts or topics which we have covered today?